Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh, Call Halamia Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Chakwadash. Double honors to the apostles of Israel, aka the head apostles of Great Millstone, who rule well and teach well with sound doctrine. Shalom to the elders and the elder bishops of Great Millstone as well. Peace, love, salutations, and blessings to all the sincere Akim and Akwat who subscribe to this truth. A hearty shalom to the men out there in the highways and byways, highways and hedges, preaching and teaching in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and risking their freedom to bring it out, making their bodies a living sacrifice. And last but not least, a hearty shalom to the men of Valor Camp, New Jersey, NYC, first camp I ever heard the truth from, Isaiah 62 verses 6 through 7. Those that make mention of the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, keep not silence. Give him no rest day or night. To Jerusalem is a praise in all the earth. So back at it, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, with another lesson. Lord's will, you'll be edified by this lesson. Going to go into a few different articles, play a couple of videos, expose some things, bring some things out, and Lord's will, you'll be edified by this. So I'm going to start with a article that was released yesterday from the New York Times, March 24th. Today is the 25th. And with no further ado, let's get into it. So this is released from the New York Times. And let's go. White House weighs executive orders on gun control. This is going to be a buzz phrase, key phrase that's in a few different articles that I'm going to cover. A day after President Biden called on Congress to pass a new assault weapons ban and tougher background checks, the administration was considering steps it could take without legislation. Without legislation. Just signing things into law, basically. Without the approval of the others. Without going through the process. Let's get into it. Washington. With Congress unlikely to move quickly on gun legislation, the White House is pressing ahead with plans for a series of executive orders that President Biden expects to roll out in the next coming weeks as a way of keeping up pressure on the issue. A day after Mr. Biden called on the Senate to pass a ban on assault weapons and strengthen background checks in response to a pair of mass shootings in the past week that left 18 people dead, White House officials said on Wednesday that while moving legislation on gun safety remained a goal, it would take time given the vehement opposition from Republicans. Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, said that legislation was necessary to make permanent changes, but she also suggested that the executive actions under consideration could be a realistic starting place. There's lots of leverage you can take, obviously, as president and vice president, she said. For now, administration officials have been reaching out to Democrats in the Senate to consult with them about 3 executive actions. One would classify as firearms so-called ghost guns, kits that would allow a gun to be assembled from pieces. Another would fund community violence intervention programs, and the third would strengthen the background checks system, according to congressional aides familiar with the conversations. So here they go with this buzz phrase right here and this buzzword. Let's get into it. Next article. It starts out with that buzz phrase right here. Gun control legislation or executive orders. Here's what President Biden is considering. So let's get into it. This was released yesterday as well, March 24th. Washington. After 2 deadly shootings in under a week in Atlanta and Boulder, Colorado, after Slovakia 2 deadly shootings rocked the nation, President Biden is facing questions about what actions he will support to increase gun control. Key phrase, buzz phrase right there. On March 16th, a gunman in Georgia killed 8 people, 6 of whom were Moabite women, so-called Asian American, as the nation sees an uptick in racist attacks toward Moabites. They're catching hell now. These curses are coming upon all of our enemies. And call hello Yahweh Bashim Yahshai for that. Then on Monday, a man in Boulder killed 10 people, including 1 police officer, when he opened fire at a grocery store. Democrats are calling for the expansion of background checks, and Biden has pushed for the Senate to pass gun legislation already passed by the House. But he's also being asked whether he'll also introduce gun control legislation or take issue executive orders. Basically just sign shit into law without the approval process. This is where we're at right now. So this is the history on gun control. That buzzword, that buzz phrase keeps on popping up. And this is an older article, you know. This is from 8 years ago, but it's pretty interesting, the history of this. And, you know, let's just get into it. So, in 1929, the Soviet Union established gun control. From 1929 to 1953, 20 million dissidents rounded up and murdered. 1911, Turkey established gun control. From 1915 to 1917, 1.5 million so-called Christian Armenians rounded up and exterminated. To be a Christian, a real Christian, you got to be an Israelite by seed line, by nationality. The Christians, who were the believers in the Messiah, Yahweh Shai, who were Israelites, were first called Christians in Antioch as a method of mocking them. Just a little bit of history on that. And some of these people could have been Jakes, you know, but for the most part, they're a bunch of heathens. 1938, Germany established gun control. From 1939 to 1945, 13 million Amalekites and others rounded up and exterminated. China, 1935, established gun control. From 1948 to 1952, 20 million political dissidents rounded up and exterminated. 1964, Guatemala established gun control. From 1981 to 1984, 100,000 Mayan Indians, our brothers, the tribe of Zebulonites, Jakes, rounded up and exterminated. 1970, Uganda established gun control. From 1971 to 1979, 300,000 believers rounded up and exterminated. Some of these could have been Jakes, though, you know. But for the most part, you know, these were people living in Uganda, and I believe that's in East Africa. If I'm wrong, brothers, correct me. Central or East Africa, and for the most part, that's Hamites. But some of them could have been Jakes, you know, because Jake is spread out throughout the whole world. 1956, Cambodia established gun control. From 1975 to 1977, 1 million educated people rounded up and exterminated. In the 20th century, more than 56 million defenseless people were rounded up and exterminated by countries, they say people, using gun control. Now, we at Great Millstone, and I'm not a member of Great Millstone, but I follow Great Millstone, so I just speak under the understanding of Great Millstone. We don't trust in our bow, neither shall our sword save us. Don't want to butcher this. Let's just read it. Psalms 44 and 6, and Slaki Hawabashim Yashai for that. This is Psalms 44 and 6. For I will not trust in my bow, neither shall my sword save me. Now, we're not saying you're wicked for owning a weapon, you know. But when you put your trust in your weapon and you think your sword can save you, then you're being wicked. Because that's Esau's blessing, the sword, not our blessing. Our blessing is the spirit. Let's keep it going. Forbes, This is a article released last week, March 17th. Today is the 25th. Domestic extremism is most lethal and persistent terrorism threat to the United States, says Mayorkas. And they're actually having a congressional meeting, I believe, this morning with Twitter and Facebook on social media misinformation. So Lord's will, I may do a video on that tonight. So the most lethal and persistent terrorism related threat to the United States is domestic ideology motivated extremism. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said in his opening remarks at a hearing before the House Homeland Security Committee. So let's get into it. The Department of Homeland Security announced in February that it would provide $77 million to state and local federal governments to combat domestic violent extremism. At the time, Mayorkas wrote in a statement that the most significant terrorism threat facing the nation comes from lone offenders and small groups, wonder who they're talking about, whose violent acts are motivated by extremist ideological beliefs. President Joe Biden directed intelligence officials to study domestic violent extremism shortly after his inauguration. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said the assessment would clarify if new methods are needed to combat domestic extremism. Let's get into the next article. So you can see where this is going, and where this is going as well. This is to disarm the general masses, the public. And this is also going to cause a division and a split. The people who are pro-gun rights versus, people who are anti-gun rights, people who believe in taking the max, versus people who don't believe in taking the max. Because when they disarm the public, they can pretty much do anything they want to you, because the people who have the right to defend themselves have no right to defend, have no means to defend themselves, for those people who want to, go that route. Now, we're not going to go that route. Lord's will, Yahweh Shem Shai keeps his spirit on us to stay spiritual. But you're going to have people who are going to go head up or try to go head up, with the powers that be. And and these legislations and these things that they're doing via psyops, via the Magites and sorcerers, their media hypnotizing the public into believing the reports that they have on CNN and Fox News are causing a split in this nation. People who are pro-jab versus non-jab, people who want to have gun rights versus the people who don't want to have gun rights, the people who are believers in the prophets versus the people who are going to think the prophets are extremists, domestic terrorists, so on and so forth. And this is all Yahweh Bashim Yahshai, putting the spirit on Esau to do these things so that prophecy can be fulfilled. So let's get it. Let's do the next article. Lawmakers consider push for federal domestic terrorism laws. This is an article that was released yesterday. And it's so ironic that they're having a hearing today, I think right now, on social media misinformation. Let's go into this. Washington, D.C. As local law enforcement agencies preparing to respond to potential domestic terrorism attacks following the January insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, lawmakers are hearing from state prosecutors about a push to change federal laws. There are currently no specific domestic terrorism charges at the federal level. Labels matter, said Michigan Attorney General Dana Nissel. Prosecuting hate-motivated attackers as terrorists sends clear message that the threat of extremism is just as significant when it is based on domestic, political, religious, or social ideologies as it is when it's based on violent jihadism. Wow, these people are reaching. Neville's office investigated and charged a group of radicalized Americans last year who were accused of plotting to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Lawmakers also heard from Nevada Attorney General Aaron Ford, who pointed to the 2017 Las Vegas mass shooting. It was the deadliest in our country's history, said Ford. It was not considered an act of terrorism under the law. So what about what happened at Black Wall Street? Was that domestic terrorism? Okay, let's keep on going. The October 1st, 2017 was not considered an act of terrorism under federal law, presumably due to lack of knowledge, lack of known political motivation, lack of international nexus. Ford said the phrase lone wolf has been used to reference many culprits of mass violence who are usually white. Calling someone a lone wolf implies that they are not terrorists because they are not connected to a state-sponsored terrorists. The threat of domestic terrorism is a growing concern around the country following the attack on the U.S. Capitol. Extremist rhetoric online. Let's read this again. Extremist rhetoric online. Who are they talking about? Rising political tensions and the proliferation of disinformation have brought us to a boiling point. The prophets are frustrating them and kicking their ass right now. That's what they're basically saying. Let's read this again. This is beautiful right here. This is code talk for the prophecy how about Shimon Shah. Extremist rhetoric online, rising political tensions, and the proliferation of disinformation. Wow, people are reaching, man. If this is basketball, Esau will be fouled out, man. Have brought us to a boiling point. I have hewed them down by the prophets. Shameful spewing. They have left federal, state, and local authorities with new, unprecedented challenges dealing with this, said Republican August Pfluger out of Texas. This is the kicker right here. Opponents to creating a federal domestic terrorism charge have warned against such a law targeting black and brown communities and infringing upon the right to free speech. Well, hold up. I thought these were crimes and acts being committed by Edomites. You see how this switched up all of a sudden to Jake? And look who they're talking about. Extremist rhetoric online and disinformation. Well, who are you talking about, man? You're talking about the prophets, man. This is all code word for the prophets, man. So let's get into what you guys are doing. Let's just...
Today, March 22nd, 322. Yes, we have an active shooter false flag in Boulder, Colorado. Notice the temperature down there says 37 degrees. There's your 37 code. But let's go on to listen to what this crisis actor has to say.
While you're outside. I got the call from my daughter that my grandchildren and my son-in-law were walked into the pharmacy for him to get a COVID-19 shot.
The COVID-19 shot. Okay, so they're pushing that agenda. We know they want you to take your vaccine, right? The New World Order wants you to get the vaccine.
And the shooter came in, shot the woman in front of them.
The woman in front of them. Now, if they're at the pharmacy and there's somebody in front of them, that means the shooter somehow got the bullets to go around his daughter, his son-in-law, and grandchildren to hit the person in front of them. It doesn't make any sense, but there's going to be more that doesn't make sense when we listen here.
They ran upstairs or hiding in a coat closet for the last hour.
So they hid in a coat closet. All those people, the grandchildren, the wife, the husband, they all ran into the coat closet just like at Sandy Hook. They ran into the obligatory coat closet where not that many people can fit in, but they all stuffed in there and they hung out.
And just like at Sandy Hook, you don't see any blood on the ground with these people. When they wheel those bodies out, supposedly those bodies out, you didn't see any blood on the sheets. No red stains at all. But supposedly you had dead bodies in them. It's obvious, man. And the same thing happened when they supposedly rode Nipsey Hussle out. Nip. There were a whole bunch of non-medical professionals. There were firemen, better yet, with white gloves on, wheeling him out on a stretcher that was white and no blood, and they had white gloves on with no blood in the gloves. Obvious. Let's keep this going. Oh, I'll stop playing the video. But let's get into the next part of this. Oh, it looks like it doesn't want to play my video right here. And I'm sort of glad this is not playing because this may get my channel taken down. But let's keep it going. Due to the interest of time. Let's keep it going. And I may leave a link in this video, Lord's will, to that actual video. So y'all can check that out on your own. I may not, though. But if you watch that video, you can see that there's no blood in the ground. There's people who are around the area that thing is happening at, or the supposed shooting is happening at, and they're not fleeing from the scene. There's no blood on the ground near the victims, the so-called victims. It's plain as day obvious that was a psychological operation, a psyop, if you have eyes to see. So, psyop, what's the meaning of it? A psyops officer conducts operations to convey selected information and indicators to foreign audiences. The goal is to influence the emotions, motives, objective reasoning, decision-making abilities, and ultimately the behavior of foreign governments, organizations, groups, and individuals. What is psychological warfare? What does it mean? Psychological warfare, also called psywar, the use of propaganda against an enemy supported by such military, economic, or political measures as may be required. So that's what that is. It's a psyop. Don't be fooled by it. It's psychological warfare. It's designed to get you to agree with the narrative that they're pushing out. And the narrative is that you don't need to have the ability to protect yourself, if you believe in weapons, and that's going to cause a division in this country, with the people who are pro gun rights versus the people who are like, nah, nobody needs to have them, and they're all playing on your emotions, playing on your heartstrings. And, Lord's will, I may leave an actual link in the description to that actual video so you can check that out on your own, because, another brother did a video on it and his channel was terminated. So maybe that happened for a reason, Well, everything happens for a reason. So let's keep it going. Psychological warfare. Actions intended to reduce an opponent's morale. So what's an example of psychological warfare? World War II offers a vivid example of psychological warfare, and the way it was employed to target the morale and sentiment of numerous troops. The most fascinating means of dissemination was in the form of leaflets dropped by the bomber planes. So what does psychological warfare mean? Now, the use of propaganda threats or other psychological techniques, psyops, mass shootings, you know, labeling people domestic terrorists, you know, a pandemic. There's a boogeyman outside. Don't breathe the natural air. You know, take our concoction in your arm, our roofie cocktail that's going to alter your genome. So let's read this. The use of propaganda, threats, or other psychological techniques to mislead, intimidate, demoralize, or otherwise influence the thinking and or behavior of an opponent. So that's what it's designed to do, you know, and that's what it's doing to people. So let's keep it going. So it just so happened that these events happen on March 22nd, you know. The Brussels attack, 2016, happened March 22nd. And if you don't know about Skull and Bones, it's a secret society, you know. The spring equinox, which is around the events that these elites do, is a lot of times around these dates between March 20th and 23rd, before or after. And it so happens that Joe Biden, Creepy Joe, made his announcement that he wants to send FEMA, the National Guard, you know, into underprivileged communities to give people the V, to give people the jab, which also connects to the Roman God of War march, you know. The Roman God of War Mars, I believe, yeah. So this is let's read this. Easter was originally the celebration of Ishtar, the Assyrian and Babylonian goddess of fertility and sex. Her symbols, like the egg and the bunny, were and still are fertility and sex symbols. After Constantine decided to Christianize the empire, Easter was changed to represent the Messiah, but its roots is all about celebration and fertility and sex. And it just so happens that they happen to do this psyop, this Boulder, Colorado shooting, March 22nd. And they do this and these things around these dates, before or after, you know. So that's just that. Let's get into some scriptures and wrap this on up. And those where you were edified by this, and those where you will be edified by this sit down. So this is Isaiah 10:1. Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that right grievousness which they have prescribed. And this is an unrighteous decree right here, you know, saying that nobody has the ability to defend themselves, you know. That's an unrighteous decree. Now, even though we don't believe and push the narrative of, you know, strapping up, that's the zealots, ISUPK, you know, Sakari, they push that narrative, but it's still an unrighteous decree to disarm people, man, you know. And that's all what has happened in the past, and look what it's led to, you know. Millions of people dying. And that's all push by Esau Edom to implement their New World Order, man. You know, they have to dumb down the public and believe that there's a boogeyman. You know, don't believe anything you see online. That's all disinformation and misinformation. You know, these people are extremists and domestic terrorists, you know, basically. And it just so happens that these things are happening, and They're happening with people who are Edomites. And then at the end of the article, they say, target Jake. So obvious what they're doing, man. If you have eyes to see and ears to hear and discernment, it's plain as day what they're doing, man. You know, and they're using these events, you know, these events and psychological warfare and psychological operations to get people into buying the narrative. And that's the boogeyman, you know, this pandemic. That's to buy into the fact that nobody has the ability or needs the ability to defend themselves. You know, don't worry about it. We'll defend you. And these people on the corner with Bibles calling out every single play that we're doing in our playbook, they're terrorists, man. Don't believe them. That's all disinformation. Jeremiah 30:7. And this is going to lead to Jacob's trouble, you know, starting with the famine of the word, you know, because once they take the prophets off the streets and label us terrorists, that's going to start the persecution. Jeremiah 30:7. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. And who's that he? The elect. The elect shall be saved out of Jacob's trouble, you know. He that endured to the end, the same shall be saved. Who's that he? The elect. And you have to be preserved, you know, and protected from Yahweh, by Yahweh Shem Yahshai to endure. And that's all by predestination. So let's get it. Mark 3:25-26. And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And the kingdom's being divided right now. There's being a shift in the American public. The people who want to take the V versus the people who don't want to take the V. The people who believe CNN and Fox News versus the people who don't believe a word that these motherfuckers are saying. The people who are going to believe that we're domestic terrorists, and the people that are going to believe the report, and the people that are going to be like, nah, man, you guys are lying, man. And that's the shift that's happening via Esau Edom and his psyops and his wicked agenda that he's pushing, and the believers, you know, and the people who just don't want to be down with the NWO, you know, because you're going to have people who aren't part of the faith, you know, who are actually going to come against and rise against this man as well. That's why they're trying to disarm the American public and to paint a narrative that there's a boogeyman, you know, via domestic terrorists, so on and so forth. And a lot of these events are staged and planned, psyops. You didn't see any blood in the ground, you know. Well, I didn't get to the video, but, you know, I mean, the water didn't get to the video because they may have taken the channel down, and they may still take the channel down for this video, you know. But if you watch that clip, you can see that there's no blood in the ground, man. But you have dead bodies in the street, 3 of them, no blood at all. I mean, doesn't that look weird? You know, you've seen video clips of people getting shot and laid out. You should see a blood trail, you know, or a blood pool. None of it. Shouldn't that raise, or, you know, shouldn't that raise a few hairs in your head, or make you think and say, okay. Maybe it won't. But as watchmen, we observe these things, and that's the first thing I seen. That's the first thing other brothers seen as well. So this is Mark 3:25. If a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And that house is being divided right now. You know, Babylon the Great, the house of Babylon the Great is being divided. And it's all through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahshai. Yahweh Shem Yahshai is putting the spirit on Esau to do these things so that the house can be divided. You know, pushing legislation to basically make any information that goes out contrary to his information disinformation. Thus, pretty soon, going to be illegal. You know, hate speech, religious misinformation, medical misinformation. This man's the devil, man. Matthew 12 and 25. And Yahushua knew their thoughts. And he said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation. And that's what's happening to Babylon the Great. And every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And this place won't stand. It's being split up by the word that's going out on the highways and byways, sifting the elect from the 2/3 and waking them up, putting the skin and bones back on them, and from the report of Esau, Edom, stirring up the mass general public to either trust Esau or not trust Esau. And that's where that split is coming. So let's read this again. Matthew 12 and 25. And it's all via Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, who's putting the spirit on Esau to do these things, so that prophecy can be fulfilled. And Yahushua knew their thoughts, and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And this place won't stand. You know, this place is standing on its last toe of its last leg. And that toe is a pinky toe. And it's about to get crushed. Genesis 27 and 41. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand, then will I slay my brother Jacob. And that's what this is right here. You know, they're trying to slay their brother Jacob, man. You know, let's read this again. Opponents to creating a federal domestic terrorism change have warned against such a law targeting black and brown communities. Well, I thought all the people who were doing, most of the people who were doing these things were lone wolf and are usually Edomites. But how did that switch in the last part of the article to Jake? Because you're the fucking devil, man. The deceiver, the adversary, the bloody man, the murderer, the thief. And you're being made bare, man, via the prophets, man, via the spirit of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, the spirit of truth, man. You know, the spirit of truth is invading this planet, and this man has nowhere to hide himself, man. So this is Wisdom of Solomon 10 and 10. When the righteous fled from his brother's wrath, she guided him in right paths, wisdom, Sophia, showed him the kingdom of the Most High, and gave him knowledge of holy things, the understanding, the Rakwadash, you know, and made him rich in his travails, and multiplied the fruit of his labors. And that's beautiful, because the elect are waking up, you know. The elect are waking up in masses right now. This exceeding great army is standing on its feet. And these people are afraid, man. And that's why they're doing this, you know. And that's why they're doing all these psyops, you know. Trying to target Jake, you know. And infringe on free speech, you know. That's what they're having a congressional meeting right now about. Disinformation and social media. Because we're the prophets putting the message up. YouTube, man. Let's keep it going. And via the highways and byways and the highways and hedges. But where do we put those lessons up? On YouTube, man. So eventually they're going to have to take down YouTube and take down the whole internet. And the day it happens, man. Because that means we're just one step closer. You know, a few prophecies left. You know, you mandating the chip with no salsa. Then you going down in the valley of Yahushua, Yahushua returning and decimating this place, man. Let's keep it going. Psalms 50 and 19 and 20. Thou givest thy mouth to evil, and thy tongue frameth deceit. That's what this is all. That's what this all is right here. You know, tongue framing deceit. You know. The Edomites are doing the crime, and they want Jake to do the time, you know. And that's what this all is right here, you know. They want to disarm the masses, to stop the pushback because you're going to have a lot of these Make America Great Again Edomites. They ain't going to be having this shit, man. And what was the bloodiest war in American history? The Civil War. Edomite on Edomite crime, man. And that's going to happen again via when they push to do this. You know, a lot of these guys named Earl and Butch, Dale, you know, they're going to come out the woodworks and they're not going to be having it, man. You know. So this is Psalms 50 and 20. Thou sittest and speakest against thy brother. Thou slanderest thine Slakia. Psalms 50 and 20. I got a little excited. Slakia. Thou sittest and speakest against thy brother, Jacob. Thou slanderest thine own mother's son. That's what this is right here. You're slandering your own mother's son, man. You know? And you want to target Jake and target the right and infringe on the right to say this message, because through the spirit and power of Yahweh by Shimei Shai, the prophets are exposing every single move, man. And Yahweh by Shimei Shai is the ultimate chess player, the ultimate movie director. This is a beautiful movie, a beautiful screenplay that he's written out, you know, via the Holy Scriptures, man. And it's a beautiful thing to have the understanding. It's a beautiful thing to be able to believe on these words. Comfort one another with these words, man. And through the spirit and power of Yahweh by Shimei Shai, that's what we're doing. So this is Proverbs 4 and 16 and 17. For they sleep not, except they have done mischief, and their sleep is taken away unless they cause some to fall. The Edomites, Easy E, Sleazy E. Sleazy E, not Easy E. Sleazy E. You know? Proverbs 4 and 17. For they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. And that's describing E, man. You know, he's a cunning hunter, a man of the field. You know? The bloody man, the murderer, the thief. And how they get this land. You know, how they get all the lands. Why is there a Edomite flag in just about every single country in the land of Ham? You know, Christopher Columbus couldn't put his sword down for an hour, he said in his memoirs. Killed 4 million natives within 4 years, man. Because Proverbs 4 and 17, for they eat the bread of wickedness, the borderline of wickedness, Malachi 1 and 4, and drink the wine of violence. 2 Corinthians 10 and 4. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through the Most High to the pulling down of strongholds. And one of the strongholds we're pulling down, all through the spirit and power of Yahweh by Shimei Shai, is these bywords, these fake nationalities, exposing Esau for being the devil, you know, pulling down Christianity, Catholicism, moon worship, Islam, all these fake understandings and all these false religions are being pulled down through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shimei Shai, through the word going out. You know, the light is being brought and being shined in the dark place, you know, and that's this world that's under the spell and under the enchantments, drunk off the wine of Babylon, man. That's America, Babylon the Great, Mystery Babylon, you know. 2 Corinthians 10 and 4. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, even though they're trying to say it is, you know. They're going to use the New Jersey incident, you know. They're going to use the incident where, you know, I believe a guy ran into a house with the garment on, you know, and try to frame us and make us seem like we're these bad, evil, wicked people, you know, and try to say that we're carnal for telling you not to trust the max. But that's all lies, you know. 2 Corinthians 10:4. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through the Most High to the pulling down of strongholds. And this word is pulling down this stronghold of America, pulling down the strongholds on all of our people, who've been drinking the wine of Babylon. It's getting them to put down the bottle, and start picking up the water cup via the scriptures, and getting washed by the word, So this is Psalms 44, 4-8. Thou art my king, O Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Command deliverances for Jacob. Read this again. Thou art my king, O Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Command deliverances for Jacob. Through thee, we will push down our enemies. Through thy name, we will tread them under that rise up against thee. Psalms 44:6. For I will not trust in my bow, neither shall my sword save me. Psalms 44:7. Thou hast saved us from our enemies. And has put them to shame that hated us. And these wicked Edomites are being put to shame, via the prophets, via the prophecies, and via this word going out. They're being hewed down by the prophets, Therefore have I hewed them by the prophets. Isaiah 44:8. In Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, we boast all day long and praise thy name, Brakat Yahweh, Brakat Yahushai, forever. Salah. It's beautiful, and we praise the holy names, the Wadi Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai for the Spirit to do this lesson. And, call halal Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Call halayim Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, better yet. All praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. This isn't of my own will. This is all to glorify Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai and his word and his message, So this is Job 20:23, and these aren't our words. These are the words of the Heavenly Father, through his Son, which gives you the Spirit, which gives you the Holy Spirit, to do all these things via going out there on the highways and byways, the lessons, the precepts come to your mind, being able to understand the prophecies, being able to teach, and also, for those who aren't prophets, being able to understand, being able to discern, being able to recognize when we bring out the white man is the devil, man, and we don't mean by this little red nigga in the bottom of the abyss, with the pitchfork. We mean by the deceiver, the adversary, the bloody man, the murderer. It takes discernment to realize that, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay, well, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. And then with more of the word coming out, you reading it, you watching the videos, you'll get more understanding of what is being brought out. And that's all the Spirit of truth, descending on you to give you that discernment. Job 20:23. When he is about to fill his belly, the Most High shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him, and it shall rain upon him while he is eating. This man won't be able to fill his belly. He won't be able to accomplish his new world order. He won't be able to go after and ship the elect. Not happening. When the enemy shall come in like a flood. Isaiah 59:19, roughly paraphrasing. The Spirit shall lift up a standard. So this is the last two precepts, Job 5:12. He disappointed the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. And what's their enterprise? Their new world order. Giving everybody the chip but no salsa. Coming after the prophets, you know. He won't be able to perform none of that, you know. Well, he'll be able to get a few of us, you know. A few of us will have to be martyrs. But that's Psalms 116 and 15, you know. Beautiful are the death of the saints. You know, beautiful in the eyes of the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yashar are the death of his saints, you know, roughly paraphrasing, man. And if you have to be a martyr, it's a beautiful thing because guess what? You're going to be the first one in the chariot, man. You know, you're going to be one of the first ones to rise, you know. You'll be the first ones to rise, better yet, you know, in that day, man. So this is the last precept. I'm going to read this again. Job 5 and 12. He disappointed the devices of the crafty, Esau, Edom, you know, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. They won't be able to get this done. You know, they're going to do all this and try to make slaves just to go into slavery at the end of the movie and then be decimated after 1,000 years. And call Halal Yahweh Bashim Yahshai the day it happens. This is the last precept. Lord's will, you were edified by this sit down, this lesson. Psalms 105 and 15, saying, touch not mine anointed and do my prophets no harm. So, you know, this last passage speaks for itself. You know, you won't be able to really do what you want to do in the fullness of what you want to do to the prophets. Some of us will have to be martyrs, that's written. But, you know, you won't be able to do the prophets harm. You know, not all the prophets, you know, because some of us will have to be martyrs. But that's a beautiful thing in the eyes of Yahweh Bashim Yahshai, you know. The dead in Hamashiach shall rise first, you know. Beautiful it's beautiful in the eyes and the sight of Yahweh Bashim Yahshai, the death of his saints. You know, Psalms was on 116 and 15, I believe, you know. So let's read this again. Psalms 105 and 15, saying, touch not mine anointed and do my prophets no harm. You know. So Lord's will, you were edified by the sit down. And I'd like to close on out, giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem Chakwadash. Double honor said the apostles of Israel, a.k.a. the head apostles of Great Millstone, who rule well and teach well with sound doctrine. Shalom to the elders and the elder bishops of Great Millstone as well. Peace, love, salutations, and blessings to all the sincere Akim and Aqua who subscribe to this truth. A hearty shalom to the men out there on the highways and byways, highways and hedges, preaching and teaching the truth and sincerity, risking their lives and risking their freedom to bring it out, making their bodies a living sacrifice. And last but not least, a hearty shalom to the New Jersey NYC Men of Valor camp, first camp I ever heard the truth from. Isaiah 62 verses 6 through 7. Those that make mention of the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahshai, give him no rest. Keep not silence, day or night. To Jerusalem is the praise of the earth. So once again, Lord's will, you are edified by this sit down in this lesson. And to the next time, shalom. Lord's will. DTA, Abba Ball. Soon.